So welcome to week, I don't know, 4 of the Psych Coordinator virtual training. This one is going to be on school needs assessment, support plans, progress monitoring, and goal achievement. There's kind of a lot of stuff going on, so this might be a little bit longer than a typical session, but we thought that it was appropriate to group all of those things together so that you know how to go through the whole process of working with your school and doing the needs assessment and support plan and all that goes with it. So I'll try to move through some of the questions quickly so that we don't, take forever, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so from my dashboard, my Psych Coordinator dashboard, of course, I'm going to access the school needs assessment and support planning icon. You should be able to see all of the schools that you have access to, which could be one school if you're a Psych Coordinator, maybe a few schools. And I will pick the one that I want to do the school needs assessment for, and you'll just find that from the gear widget. And as you see, there is not an assessment yet, so I'm going to go to the upper right to where I can create a new school needs assessment. Part 1. We did divide up the needs assessment into 2 parts based on some feedback that we got from the pilot affiliates. So hopefully this is going to be more user-friendly for you guys when you're doing your work this year. And as always, the starred fields are going to be required. Most of these questions should be pretty straightforward. Do you have a signed school agreement? Is the school Title I eligible? Is it receiving the Title I funding? It could be eligible, but maybe not actually receive funding this year. And for total enrollment, this is the population of your school, or student population. I know that it might be a little bit of an estimate as the numbers can go up and down throughout the year. Maybe you're going to use the official enrollment the first day of school, or there's another day that your school uses as the official enrollment date. But just, put in what makes sense. I'm going to maximize my screen. Okay. So for some of these breakdowns moving forward, actually a lot of them are going to be in percent, including the gender and race. We did it this way because some people may only have the percentage, so in that case they can put it in. But if you do get from your school the actual number of students in a given category, like male, for example, you can calculate the percentage fairly easily. So hopefully this will work for everybody. We did have to choose one or the other. So you enter the percent, and combined, the two have to equal, in this gender section, the two have to equal 100%. And you'll see that the system is calculating the estimated number based on the percent you put in. So you can kind of double check to make sure that looks like what you're going for here. And the same thing for race. All of the races combined will have to equal 100. And the system will calculate the estimated number of students in those race categories as you go through. Okay, so what am I up to? 60%. You can add another race if there's something else that you track at your particular school by clicking on this checkbox. And you see when you do that, a few other fields pop up for you to say what that race is, describe it, and put the percentage. And then there's another checkbox that appears if you have more than one additional race. But these are our standard options, which you'll probably be familiar with from Legacy System. And I had, 60%, so hopefully we're up to 100 now. There are a number of questions here about your students. These will not equal 100%. They're not, you can't, your students aren't necessarily in one category or another. This is just out of the percentage of, this is the percentage of the entire student population that's economically disadvantaged, whatever that happens to mean for your school. There may be a few different kinds of indicators based on income or free and reduced price lunch, but that's why we use the term economically disadvantaged, so it can encompass a few different things for your local needs. Special education enrollment, English language learners, what percentage of your student population are English language learners, homeless students, immigrant and migrant population. So those should be pretty straightforward, and I believe that you would be able to get that information from your principal or somebody at your school. These are more reflective of the school itself. The per student spending is in dollars. And the student-teacher ratio is how many students there are per teacher. So if there are 25 students for every teacher on average in your school, then you would just put 25 here. A few other data points that we ask for, if you have that information, is the teacher turnover rate and the student mobility rate. And these are all just indicators of, how well your school is doing, some of the needs that there might be, all part of your school needs assessment. So I'll just kind of fill out a couple of these here. Okay. So now we come to the metrics. Now these are the school-wide aggregated metrics, meaning they're not for your case-managed students, that you've done separately on your student support plans when you're setting those goals, and we'll be able to set school goals in a minute. But right now we want to just look at how the school is doing as a whole. So the overall average daily attendance, or ADA rate, promotion rate, graduation rate, and the graduation rate is actually measured in 3 different ways. We have the options to put in the 4-year cohort graduation rate, so all of the students that started 9th grade together and were supposed to graduate optimally would graduate in 4 years. What percentage of those original students did graduate in 4 years? The same with the 5-year cohort graduation rate. How many of those kids graduated within 5 years? Okay, and then the annual graduation rate, which is, last year, or if you're doing this for the 17-18 school year, what was the graduation rate in 2016-17? And of course, this would only apply really if you're in high school and have seniors who are graduating. And then we have promotion rate and retention rate. Some disciplinary-related or behavior-related fields, such as suspension rate, expulsion rate, and other disciplinary actions. We kept this one pretty vague because maybe your school doesn't use suspensions, but there's some sort of disciplinary referral that they measure behavior with. So hopefully what you track and your school tracks will be able to fit into here nicely. But of course, please reach out to your affiliate leadership if there are any questions about specifics. And then near the bottom, we have the percent of students proficient in reading, as well as the percent proficient in math as, one of the academic indicators. The level of parent engagement is another indicator of kind of the needs of your school or what CIS might be trying to address, trying to do at the school. And this is just an open text box, so you can, be as descriptive as you want to be. There are a few of these little red circles with a question mark in them, and that indicates that there is some help text for, added description, some examples. So always check those out if you're confused by the question. Okay, and then I'll just click on Save at the bottom right, which is typical for our workflows. And then that takes me to the second and last page of this workflow. To remind you about workflows, you'll see on the left-hand side all of the different forms in a particular workflow, and then you'll move through them. So right now I'm on stakeholder assessment, the one with the star next to it. And this is the last page of our part 1 of our needs assessment. Typically, you would be surveying in some way, whether through interviews, surveys, or something else, different stakeholders such as school administration, the teachers, other support staff at the school, of course, parents. Perhaps you do surveys of the students to see how they feel about certain things and what they identify as issues in the school. And then other providers that are already doing programming and things like that in your school. So maybe you've only interviewed a couple of these groups, maybe all of them. Just put the appropriate information here, the way that you contacted these individuals, and the kinds of things that that you talked about, your top findings from those. Okay. Then I'm going to, instead of filling all this out, I'm going to click Save at the bottom again so that I have completed part 1 of my school needs assessment. And then you click Done to navigate away from the workflow. So now you see where this was blank before, there is a row for this school year's needs assessment. You should have a needs assessment and support plan for your school for every single year. So as you kind of continue on with CIS and using the system, you'll see that it's the 2016-17 school year, 17-18, 18-19, etc. But each one will have a row here. I'm going to continue by doing my part 2 of my needs assessment by clicking on that button, maximize my screen again. Okay, and this one is a little bit longer, but a lot of the information is going, some of the information is going to pull in from previous pages, so it's not all of these forms that you actually have to fill out. So let's see what we have here. Again, the school year, make sure the correct one is being chosen. So your key priorities and key strategies for improving school outcomes, as you have identified in the school improvement plan, and all of the, the discussions that you've had with principals, other administrators, the teachers, and students is all leading you to kind of, gather this information that you can put into the system. That's what I thought. Okay. And below the school improvement plan section, you have community data findings. And again, there is help text to kind of describe what that means. Apparently I can't spell anything today. And where did you get this information? Some of it might have come from the Census Bureau, a focus group that you have with the community members, etc. And I'm going to hit Save to move to the next page. Okay, so the intent of this section, the existing school resources or services or programming, is essentially to kind of identify what already exists at the school. As you know, CIS not only creates new programs, but also brokers in resources from the community. But there may be partnerships here that were, already existing prior to this school year, prior to when CIS even came to the school. So that information can be added here. If you want to do multiple rows, you can hit Add Resource/Service in the top right as many times as you need to, of course, to put multiple different providers and their programming. But I'm just going to do one so we can move on. I'm going to say that this occurs in the school cafeteria once a week. So this is an existing resource that we have at the school. Mentoring is already going on here to some extent. And when I save, it'll move to the next page about risk factors. This list is actually going to change slightly, so when you start to do your school support plan, you'll see a little bit of a different list here. Shorter, if anything. Don't worry, we're not going to make it longer. But they do default to unknown, but please do choose yes or no if you have the information, and know that it is definitely in your school, it's definitely impacting your school, or if you think that it's definitely not a risk or issue at your school. I'll just do some of these here. Now the priority field is really asking you, is this a priority for the school? Because of course you have talked to the principals and the principal and teachers and all of those sorts of folks, so you'll know if it's a school priority. Is it a CIS priority? Is it both or neither? So it is, perfectly normal to have something that is a school priority, but CIS just isn't planning to address it this year for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's something that CIS really wants to work on, but the school hasn't identified it in their top priorities. And of course, you're both saying that it is a priority and you're going to work on it this year. And if you'll note here, the two that I chose that have CIS priority in them are community disorganization and discrimination. So when I click Save and go to my summary page, it'll show you all of the different risk factors and what you added. But when we continue to move forward, it'll focus in on those that you said were going to be a priority for you. So now we're in the section that we're talking about prioritized needs. And if you forget what risk factors you chose, you can click on that button, and you'll see the ones that you identified as at least a CIS priority, or both school and CIS. So that should help you to keep building your needs assessment and talk about the sorts of things that you're going to address because of the risks and issues that are prevalent in your school. We have a multi-select option for the goal areas because, some of the needs and supports that you're going to provide are really going to address more than one type of goal. And I'm just going to add one more by clicking the button called Add Need before I move on. Oops. Well, and then I accidentally moved on. Okay. And so if you do that same thing, you'll actually have to wait until we leave the workflow to be able to edit that last page. You aren't able to move back and forth within a workflow, as you'll find out if you haven't already from our other trainings, that the workflows only go forward. But there is a place to edit all of this information later. So now we're on the basic needs section, which of course are similar to needs, but this is really focused on those kind of foundational needs that everybody has, like clothing, shelter, food, etc. So this is saying whether you know that this need exists, that this is kind of an issue at your school, something that students are lacking. You can say that there is an existing provider. So for example, if there's already a clothing closet that is happening at your school, through a local church or something like that, or food pantry, doing food, providing food resources, then you can say that is there. So that's something that maybe CIS doesn't have to address. So you can say that it's a priority or not, and then also if you're going to be able to address this or plan to address it this year. We're going to say that transportation is an issue, it's a priority, you're going to address it with your van service that you're going to create. And click Save to move on to the next page, as always. And this one will bring you to a summary again. So there are a number of pages that kind of allow you to review the information that you entered. This one actually, if you need to edit that, you can click on Edit and make some changes. But some of the regular entry forms, you will have to wait until we leave the workflow to be able to edit that. So if I click Save, and now that I'm at the bottom of my list of forms, the workflow is now complete, and it shows you all the things that I did and what date, because of course you can leave and come back another time. I know this is a lot of information to enter at once, so it is built so that you can kind of do this on a little ongoing. If I click Done, it'll take me out of my workflow, and that's I will have done the Part 1 and Part 2 of the needs assessment. And you'll see here that this is where you're going to be editing needs assessment data, as well as the support plan data once all of that is entered. So if I needed to go back and fix something, I could do that. Okay, I'm going to use my breadcrumbs to go back. Okay, so now that we have a complete school needs assessment, we're going to create the school support plan. And I'll click on that button. And the first thing it asks you for is for your school support team. The two specific required fields are so that you can designate a site coordinator for this school for this year and also enter the principal name. So the site coordinator lookup is going to be based on users in the system who have access to this school, and the principal name is just going to be a field that you type into. And you can add as many members of your school support team as you have, of course, by clicking on the button Add Row. A new one will pop up, and then you would put their first and last name. There's a drop-down menu to identify who this is within the school, a teacher, assistant principal, custodian, etc. But I have my other team members entered here, so I'm just going to click Save and move on. And this is a review, essentially, of the school demographics that you put in. This does give you an opportunity to adjust, but also just because you had entered so much information in the needs assessment and you might not be doing the support plan for another, some number of weeks or months. Maybe you did some of the needs assessment at the end of the school year and now it's September or August and you're creating the official support plan. So this kind of gives you a review of the information that you put into the needs assessment. Going to add a few more numbers in here. Again, it's your basic needs summary that you can change if necessary. The regular needs summary. I know it's kind of funny that some things are called needs and some things are called basic needs, but hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. And then this is when you're going to really set those school goals and choose what metrics you're going to use to track those goals. So I think I had talked a little bit in my needs assessment about attendance being a problem. And I said that my attendance rate at my school for this past school year was 75. So I want to bring that up to 85. The baseline date is going to be the date that is reflected for this value. So if it's the end of the 2016-17 school year, then it's something like maybe June 15th. That's where this baseline value is coming from, is June 15th of 2017. The target value that I'm creating now for this school year, I'm setting that target in, we'll say August, for the new school year. And you can add goals throughout the school year if you start out with just an attendance goal, but then, partway through the year want to start working on behavior on a school-wide level. You can definitely add those later, and then your target dates will be reflective of that time period that you're, in December you decide you want to work on behavior. So how often are you going to monitor this particular metric? Unlike for the student metrics that you would get every grading period at least, some of this stuff might not be available to you or even measured every single grading period. It might be semester, maybe it's just beginning and end of the school year that you have this information, so you can put the correct option there. And please put in the data scale and the source. So this could be something as simple as the scale is, because it's a percentage for me, the attendance rate, the scale is 1 to 100%, and the source is going to be, I'm pulling this directly from the school's information system. Maybe the principal is going to give you some information or some other source for your data. An example of something that isn't going to be measured really ongoing is something like graduation or promotion rate. You would basically have the 16-17 school year to compare it to, and then what you're aiming for the 17-18 school year. So that frequency of monitoring might be just kind of essentially once at the end of the year. That doesn't mean that you're not, monitoring the progress of your students and tracking that, but you won't have the official value of graduation rate until those numbers really come in at the end of the year, if that makes sense. So anything that you're checking here that is a red box and it opens up these extra fields that are required, that is saying that I am choosing this goal to work on for the school year. Of course, you're welcome to choose as many as you want on this list. We recommend, limiting it to the goals that you are really planning on addressing and the metrics that you are able to track. And I click Save to move on. And this is where we're going to add our plan to supports, just like we did for students, or very similarly to what we did for students. I'm going to click on that button and talk about the different supports that I want to provide. So some of them might be behavioral interventions. Maybe I have a tutoring program that I'm going to do. These should look very familiar to you. The school category drop-down and the support drop-down are going to be the same as they were for student level. And then if your affiliate set up an activity name, you can choose that here. But if they choose not to use that level of detail, then you would just have a category and a support name. And again, this is something that can address multiple goals, but we're only pulling in the goals that you specified in the previous page. So I only chose an attendance goal officially. If I had chosen an attendance goal, a behavior goal, and an academic goal, those three options would all show up here. It's going to default to Tier 1 because you will, of course, be providing Tier 1 supports to address the whole school issues. But you may also have a Tier 2 kind of program or even Tier 3 in support of this wider goal of, improving behavior or school climate or something like that on the larger scale. And then we have a few other questions like the projected number of students and parents and other individuals that are participating. Are there specific providers that you're working with to do this tutoring program? And these, again, have to be set up by the affiliate in advance. So if your affiliate leadership chooses to create provider names, they'll come up in this dropdown. And, how often is this going to occur, this program? Okay, and you can, again, keep clicking on Add Plan Supports to get as many as you want, but I'm just going to have this one and click Save to move forward. And there are only 2 more fields left in the support plan for the school level. Or, sorry, pages, not necessarily fields. 2 more forms in the workflow. It does say if you don't have the information below, you can request it from your affiliate and complete the form at a later date. This kind of gets to how you're going to identify students for case management and how you, do student intake. So this sort of thing is kind of how you're going to approach case management and student referrals and intakes in general. So we're asking it just this one time for in your school needs assessment and support plan. It's not going to depend on the student, so you don't have to answer this kind of information for individual students. Maybe your affiliate has certain eligibility criteria for whom is going to be case managed. Maybe there are, you always get referrals from the principal or from the guidance counselor. Maybe you kind of do a different sort of assessment to seek out what students should be case managed. All of that information should, be discussed with your affiliate, and you'll, understand their policies around this. How will you obtain parent and guardian consent? Who's responsible for that, and how do you go about doing that? Are you going to send a physical, piece of paper home with certain students at the beginning of the year so they can turn it in, etc.? How do you create, whoops, I made it bigger. Whoops, I made it bigger again. How do you create individual student support plans? How do you monitor and adjust for those students? And how are you assessing whether students are making progress towards their goals? And how are you going to report this and to whom? So presumably your affiliate leadership, school leadership, your school support team, of course, all of these individuals will be working with you throughout the year, and you'll be reporting progress to them on a regular basis. And the final page is just one descriptive open field. How will progress against the school support plan be reported to the school leadership? So this plan that you just finished, which was a little bit of a long process, how are you going to let the principal and the other administrative folks know how you're doing in relation to these goals? Actually, that's probably pretty frequent. How about we do a quarterly in-person meeting and then monthly updates via email? Sounds good to me. And then when I click Save, I finished my workflow, and so now the school support plan is complete. All right, so I won't be able to completely print out the PDF right now, but this functionality will exist soon. We had to remap some of the fields that we changed. So if I click on Print Plan, I'll see the summary page, but I won't be able to export the PDF. But that will be an option here for you so that all of this work that you did to create your plan, the whole thing can be printed out and shown to whomever, signed by your affiliate, your principal, whoever needs to sign it. So that's pretty cool. It's convenient. Are there any questions before I move on to progress monitoring and goal achievement about just putting in the needs assessment and school support plan? Okay. Well, then I'm going to go on to progress monitoring. So I click the button called Progress Monitoring, and you can see that my goal to improve attendance, and the only metric that I chose, which was attendance rate, is already waiting here for me. My baseline value of 75% and the target that I want to achieve this year, which is 85%, are also being pulled into this area because I entered them already. So we don't make you do double entry as much as we can help it. So if I click on the gear widget, I'll see a few different options. I'm going to go to the progress monitoring so that I can enter that in. And you'll see a little summary at the top. Again, it'll show me the baseline and the target, so I have something to compare this to. And then the notes I put in about the scale and the source of my data. So as I mentioned, some information at the school level might not really be available as frequently as the student level. So you might not be putting in data, actual metric data every quarter if you have quarters, grading periods at your school. So we might change this around a little bit and make the value not required so that you're still able to talk about whether you provided the Tier 1 supports related to this goal. So progress monitoring in general should be done frequently. So even if you don't have the exact attendance rate for a given quarter, trimester, semester, you should still be able to talk about the progress that you as a site coordinator are making towards your own goals. And your goal was really to, implement these supports, monitor, work towards these school goals. So you can say that you provided Tier 1 supports, and if you want to be specific, you can write some notes in there about what those are. Of course, you're tracking the Tier 1 supports in SYSDM 2.0, so you'll have that to back you up. And you can assess whether you think that you're making progress towards this school-wide goal. So I do have to put in a value right now because it's required as of today, but we'll see if we can do something about that so that you're still able to talk about your Tier 1 supports even if you don't have a metric data point for that time period. And I'll say my review date. It's going to default to today, whatever today is for your convenience, but I'll pretend that we're like in the first quarter of the year somewhere. Okay, and when I hit save, it'll take me back to that summary table, and you'll see the information that I entered. So I had put in 77 as my first quarter or semester, what have you, and then the progress. And these will be filled out once we do goal achievement. So throughout the year, you're doing progress monitoring, and at the end of the year, you're doing goal achievement. But it's all in the same place. Again, added convenience, so hopefully this is pretty straightforward. If I click on Final Goal Achievement, takes me, again, same sort of little summary at the top, so I remember where I started and where I want to go. So did we meet the goal or not? Well, the final attendance rate for the final quarter or year is 86, so I did meet my goal. That's very exciting. And then I feel like this notes was probably meant to write our notes in. So we had it defaulting to a different notes field, but I think we'll change that. And then the achievement date is going to default to today. A lot of the dates do that, again, for your convenience, but obviously you can choose whatever date this really reflects. Maybe the official end of the school year is what you want to do, which was, for example, June 15th. Yeah, just put in whatever makes sense to you, your school, your affiliate, and click Save. And so this you'll only have to do once per school. Obviously, every student that you're case managing will also have goal achievement, but this process for the school level information should be pretty quick and straightforward, especially if you're a site coordinator for just one school.